I love the term reading tarot because that's exactly what we do. When we look at a card, we're reading the image. It's really important if you're reading tarot that you don't immediately reach for the book or the crib sheet or your notes, but that you stop and look at each card and give your unconscious or your higher guidance, however you like to consider this works, a chance to inspire you with the true meaning of that card in this reading. Because each focus, each spread, each combination of cards can create unique meanings that if you're not pausing to read the card, you could easily overlook. I wanted to share with you some of the more unusual meanings of tarot cards that have really stuck in my mind, and they've all come from real examples. And the most recent one, and the reason why I was inspired to make this video, is the High Priestess. I was doing a reading for a client about a friendship situation, and the High Priestess was one of the key cards for the friend. And as I looked at the High Priestess, I really saw Persephone looking back at me. Now, I am a Norse shaman, so, I often see the High Priestess as hell. But on this occasion, my mind just pinged, that's Persephone. And I said to my client, your friend is behaving in a very childish manner. Because, of course, Persephone is the daughter. And it was absolutely on point. What had happened in this situation was the friend had been triggered by a family situation and was acting very much in a younger version of herself. And it really helped to sort of unlock the reading and find the best way to handle the situation. But I'd literally never seen that in the High Priestess before. The Queen of Cups, it has so many meanings, from the intuitive to the psychic. It can have connections with the divine feminine. It can even have links to pregnancy and birth when the cup represents a womb. But in relationship spreads, this can reflect being self-focused, selfish, and self-centered. Because the Queen has turned away from anything else in the picture. In fact, the throne kind of reaches up and envelops her. And the cup that she's engaged with is her own heart, her own soul. There are times when this is really important. And very often in a reading, this card will say you need to focus on yourself more. But every now and again, the Queen of Cups will say that either my client or somebody in the reading is being too self-focused. Now, the Seven of Wands is one of my favourite cards. And the little detail that you can hopefully pick up on these cards is that the individual is wearing a shoe and a boot. Now, we know historically that Pamela Coleman Smith was working on the set design for The Taming of the Shrew around the time that she painted this picture. And The Taming of the Shrew is about this arranged marriage between Mercutio and Kate. And Kate was a shrew because she was an independently minded woman. And Mercutio turned up at the wedding with mixed matched apparel, in this case, the shoe and the boot, to tame Kate. But the thing is, Kate was not for taming, and Mercutio and Kate fell in love because they were well matched. So I have seen this come up in relationship spreads, friendship spreads, and even spreads to do with work colleagues or business partners, to say that the couple are well matched. So it's just one of those little details that I really love. I know a lot of people are put off by the Hierophant because of the Christian imagery. But actually, a key meaning that often comes up for me in the Hierophant is communication. Of course, it can be hierarchy, it can be a wisdom tradition, it can be teaching or learning. But at core, the Hierophant is communicating. And so I've seen this represent you need to communicate better, or the other person is trying to communicate and you're not listening, or even good communication is essential at this point. Justice, of course, traditionally is going to be to do with the law of the land. It's also to do with universal laws. Now, personally, I don't necessarily believe in twin flames because I believe that we are all complete as individuals. But I do believe there are certain souls that we have contracts with, certain people that we are meant to meet in this lifetime. And it's not always romantic and it's not always easy. But in a relationship spread, I have often seen justice represent a past life connection. The Five of Swords, of course, can be arguments. It can even be slander. But we need to look at this card despite the intensity of the card. If we look at the clouds, if we look at the hair in the wind, nobody's actually bleeding. And the victor, the chap standing here, is clearly holding the swords by the handles. Often I've seen the Five of Swords represent creative originality. When other people are perhaps disagreeing with us and we are so comfortable and genuinely believe in what we're doing or saying, not from a place of hubris, but from genuinely believing in it, that we don't care that other people disagree with us. And in fact, I sometimes nickname this the Van Gogh card, because I would say that Vincent van Gogh received a lot of verbal complaining about his paintings, and he stuck to his true inner vision. And today he still remains a very, very popular and much loved artist. Often the creatives that really bring in originality are not understood at first because they're changing things and it feels uncomfortable and uncertain. So when I read for people that are on a creative path and the Five of Swords comes up, it's a card that I will take the time to really talk through. The Knight of Swords really sticks in my mind. This was a long time ago now, and it was an email reading. And I was given two names and I was told we're in the early starts of a relationship. I just want some understanding and advice. And the card that kept coming up with it was the Knight of Swords. And in a reading, particularly an email reading where I can't actually ask questions, I will often suggest something. If I consider something is likely, but I haven't had it expressed clearly in the cards, then I'll suggest it. And the way the Knight of Swords seemed to dominate the relationship, I said, this feels like a long distance relationship. And the answer came back that in fact they'd never met. They were on different continents. I mean, there's so many meanings for the Two of Pentacles. Again, it's just one of those odd readings from many years ago that sticks in my mind. And it was for an older lady. She'd moved to be close to her adult children. And she was really struggling to find any joy in her life. And the Two of Pentacles was a card that just kept coming back. And when I looked at it, I thought, he's distracting himself. He's turned his back on the difficulties of life and he's just juggling and dancing. And when I talked to her, she felt very obligated to do lots and lots of childcare because the adult children had really supported the move down. I have to say, I think this came more from her than from them. And when I asked, what do you do just for you? She just couldn't think of anything. And it really helped her to appreciate that actually good quality leisure time is essential for our mental health. I also love the Six of Swords. I know not everyone does. One of the details that's really important in the Six of Swords is the soft blues in the distances here. So many of Pamela Coleman Smith's, the shorelines or the far distant fields and mountains are really carefully coloured. But in the Six of Swords, they're soft blue. And I think for me, it's this feeling of you're moving in the right direction. You're just not sure what it's going to look like yet. But we cannot overlook the chap with the large black pole. The same black pole that the Fool holds and the chap in the Ten of Pentacles. To me, that clearly indicates that this person is not in a physical body, as the Fool is not yet fully incarnate. This is guided by your spirit guides or your guardian angels or whatever you want to call that, or your ancestors. I've come to associate the Nine of Wands with either PTSD or complex PTSD. Now, obviously, I cannot diagnose. I'm a tarot reader. I don't have any medical background. But if this card comes up and it feels right in the context of the spread, I might suggest it. I might suggest that hypervigilance, that sense of wariness and weariness, can be linked to PTSD or complex PTSD. So it's not a case of diagnosing. I don't think we can ever do that as tarot readers unless we've got that medical background. But we can certainly point clients in directions and suggest they get different professional advice. The Lovers, if you're reading, either for yourself or for other people, there are going to be lots of times when the Lovers does not mean a sexual relationship. We have to, we have to acknowledge that. You can't send someone off to an interview saying you need to flirt with the interviewer. You have to find different ways of looking at cards. Of course, the Lovers can mean choice and making a choice. It can mean surrendering to a choice that you've made. But whenever we see more than one person in a card, they can all represent different parts of ourselves. So I've often seen the Lovers mean this decision needs to feel right. Logically, you need to have done a pros and cons list, and you need to check in with your higher guidance as well. And that idea of making a really balanced decision. Something to never overlook with the Hanged Man is this aura here, which I associate as being the crown chakra, being fully awake. And the fact that his heart is above his head. So sometimes the Hanged Man will be suggesting that you need to make an intuitive decision or a heart-based decision, particularly if that's not the way that you would normally make a decision. I have seen the Ten of Swords represent somebody seeking either acupressure or acupuncture. I've also seen it represent people booking in for massages and doing things to ease physical pain, which will naturally ease their mental health. So the Ten of Swords can represent that the body holds a memory or the body holds a score kind of an idea. And if you're struggling with your mental health, maybe you need to start with something that's really good for your body first to get your body relaxed, to make it easier to resolve your mental health. The Fool with that black pole, the unique white sun, and the white rose that is, of course, in the Death card. With the right cards and the right question or focus, this is my number one baby card because it is an unincarnated spirit. And following on with that idea, I have seen the Tower represent conception. where we have the phallic symbol. We have sort of this lightning as almost like a hand of God or a divine energy. And arguably the seeds bursting forth. The Ten of Wands was one that was pointed out to me when I was doing a year ahead reading for myself, and I couldn't make sense of the Ten of Wands. And somebody in the workshop pointed at it and said, that's your husband moving out of the property. It was the time when my marriage was a very difficult place. And they were absolutely right. This was the key card for the February of the year ahead. And I do remember the Four of Swords was next to it. And the student said, that's your husband moving out. And the Four of Swords is the sense of peace and relief you feel afterwards. And they were absolutely right. Sometimes the Ten of Swords represents being overwhelmed, overworked. Sometimes it can represent what I call procrastination through busyness, when you find yourself lots of chores to do that aren't what you're meant to be doing. But yeah, sometimes it represents having a good clear out, taking stuff to the dump, or even moving home or moving office. Now, the King of Wands can, of course, be a visionary leader, can be an inspiring individual, but I cannot get over the fact that he literally seems to be shuffling off the chair. And he's not looking at you, the reader of this card. He's looking over in the far distance. So particularly in relationship readings, but actually in any reading, this can represent sitting on the fence. This can represent, I think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. This can represent, I don't want to be here, but I'm not sure I want to leave either. Which can be a very common feeling in a marriage where, perhaps you've got children, maybe you've got a mortgage, maybe you're really comfortable with the day-to-day living, but you feel that the passion and spirit has gone. You can be left feeling, I'm not sure I want to leave the marriage, but I'm also not sure I want to be in the marriage. So it's really a card to look out for. And I think this is why I just never, ever get bored of tarot, because each card's unique meaning will come out when you blend either the question or the focus, the right spread for you in that situation, taking the time to read each card. And what you'll often find, and it happens to me as a tarot pro as well, is that every now and again in your spread, one card just won't make sense. It doesn't quite fit in. Well, if this happens, my advice is to do exactly what you would do if you were reading a book. If I'm reading a book and I get to a word and it doesn't make sense, I carry on reading, because I naturally presume that the context of the rest of the paragraph will help me to understand the meaning of that one word. And that's what tarot does. So you read each card as you turn them over in the spread. And if you get to a card and you're really stuck on it, just keep reading. And then when you've finished the spread, go back to the one that you were stuck on and just look at it. Just sit with it for a few moments. Because often the context of having read for the whole spread will help you to understand the meaning of the card that you couldn't quite read in the moment. And often it's because the meaning is something just a little bit more niche, a little bit more unusual. It might be a reading that you haven't come across yet in a book or a podcast or a video. Because if these 78 cards can represent any experience to humankind, or actually to animal kind, I'm surprised at the number of animals I've read for in my time, then the meanings for each card are actually infinite. And we need to leave space for that. Space for the cards to talk to us and allow us to perceive their niche meaning in that particular spread.